From the moment we enter the world, we are conditioned. We are given names, identities, and predefined roles. We are taught what is acceptable and what is not, what is rewarded and what is punished. This process is so subtle and gradual that we rarely question it. We adapt, we conform, and over time we learn to suppress parts of ourselves that don't align with the expectations placed upon us. Think back to your childhood. Were there moments when you expressed yourself freely, only to be met with disapproval? Maybe you were told to be realistic, to stop being too sensitive, or that certain emotions and desires were inappropriate. Slowly, you learned to hide those parts of yourself, tucking them away where no one could see them. And in doing so, you began to build a mask that Jung called the persona. The persona is the face we present to the world. It allows us to function in society, to navigate relationships, and to gain acceptance. But here's the problem. The more we identify with this mask, the more we lose touch with our real selves. We begin to believe that we are the persona, forgetting that there is something deeper beneath it. And then there is the other side of the coin, the shadow. If the persona is what we show the world, the shadow is what we hide from it. It consists of everything we have rejected or suppressed within ourselves, our fears, our unspoken desires, our vulnerabilities, and even our hidden strengths. But here is where it gets even more profound. The shadow does not simply disappear. It does not vanish just because we refuse to look at it. Instead, it operates beneath the surface, influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and emotional reactions in ways we do not consciously recognize. The parts of ourselves that we reject do not go away. They manifest in unconscious ways, often through projection, a defense mechanism where we attribute our own repressed qualities onto others. Have you ever intensely disliked someone without fully understanding why? Have you ever been triggered by certain behaviors in others that provoke a strong emotional reaction? Jung believed that when we are disturbed by qualities in another person, it is often because those very qualities exist within us, hidden within our own shadow. But what if I told you that within this shadow lies the key to true self-discovery? That the parts of yourself you have suppressed and ignored are not your enemies, but rather the missing pieces of your wholeness. Jung's greatest insight was this: psychological growth is not about eliminating the shadow, it is about integrating it. It is about looking into the depths of your own unconscious and facing what you have denied. Because when you do, you unlock a profound source of personal power, authenticity, and freedom. This is where the real journey begins. Are you ready to confront the truth of who you are? To break free from the illusions that have shaped you? Because what comes next will challenge everything you thought you knew about yourself, and it will open the door to a life that is truly yours. Most people go through life believing they already know who they are. They define themselves by their name, their job, their culture, and their past experiences. But what if I told you that your identity is far more complex than you realize, that the self you believe yourself to be is merely a surface-level construct, a fraction of a much deeper, more profound reality? Jung believed that within every individual exists a hidden world, a vast and intricate inner landscape filled with forgotten memories, suppressed emotions, unacknowledged desires, and untapped potential. And the key to truly finding yourself is not in constructing a new identity, but in uncovering what has been buried within you. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever felt a deep, unexplainable longing for something more? A sense that there is a greater version of yourself waiting to emerge? This is not just imagination. It is the voice of your unconscious mind calling you to something greater. Jung referred to this process as individuation, the journey of integrating all aspects of yourself, the good and the bad, the light and the dark. He believed that true fulfillment comes not from conforming to external expectations, but from embracing all parts of who we are. But here is the challenge. Before we can integrate these parts, we must first confront them. And this is where most people stop. Why? Because facing yourself is uncomfortable. It requires looking at aspects of your personality that you have long ignored. It demands that you question deeply held beliefs, challenge your fears, and confront the inner conflicts that have shaped your life. Think about it. How often do we avoid silence? How often do we distract ourselves with work, social media, entertainment, or anything that keeps us from sitting alone with our thoughts? This constant distraction is not accidental. It is a defense mechanism, a way of avoiding the deeper questions that linger beneath the surface. But no matter how much we try to escape them, these hidden aspects of ourselves do not go away. They show up in unexpected ways through anxiety, self-sabotage, unfulfilling relationships, or a persistent feeling of being lost. Jung believed that our unconscious mind is always speaking to us, but we have learned to ignore its messages. However, if we start paying attention, we begin to see patterns. We begin to notice how our deepest wounds influence our choices, how our suppressed desires shape our behaviors, how the things we fear most often hold the greatest lessons. Let's consider a simple yet powerful example. Fear of rejection. Many people go through life terrified of being judged or abandoned. They seek approval, avoid conflict, and suppress their true thoughts to maintain harmony. But where does this fear come from? Is it really about the opinions of others, or does it stem from something deeper? Perhaps an old wound, an experience from childhood, a moment when they felt unseen or unworthy. Jung would argue that this fear is not just an emotion, it is a shadow aspect of the self that has not been fully acknowledged. And until it is brought into the light, it will continue to control one's actions from behind the scenes. But here is the incredible thing. When we finally face these hidden parts of ourselves, they lose their power over us. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to live without fear of judgment. To make decisions not based on what others expect, but on what resonates deeply within you. This is the power of individuation. It is not about becoming someone new, it is about becoming more of who you truly are. But how do we begin? How do we uncover the unconscious forces that shape our lives? Jung believed that one of the most powerful ways to access the unconscious is through symbols, dreams, and introspection. He saw dreams as messages from the deeper self, revealing hidden truths about our psyche. He also emphasized the importance of creative expression, art, writing, music, and other forms of self-exploration as ways of accessing and integrating the unconscious mind. But perhaps the most important step is simply this: awareness. The moment you begin to question your thoughts, your reactions, and your deeply held beliefs, you are already taking the first steps toward transformation. The moment you stop running from discomfort and start facing it with curiosity, you begin to reclaim your true self. Because here's the truth. Most people live their entire lives as strangers to themselves. They follow the paths laid out for them, never realizing that they have the power to choose something different. They suppress their true nature, never realizing that their greatest strength lies in embracing all that they are. But you don't have to be one of those people. You have the power to break free from the illusions that have held you back, to shed the layers of conditioning and fear that have kept you from experiencing life fully, to step into the fullness of who you are, unafraid and unapologetic. And in the next part, we are going to explore something even more profound, the hidden archetypes within you. These ancient patterns, buried deep in your psyche, hold the key to unlocking your greatest potential. What you are about to learn may change the way you see yourself forever. Would you like me to continue? There are invisible forces within you shaping your thoughts, choices, and the way you see the world. You may not always be aware of them, but they are there, guiding, influencing, and sometimes even controlling you in ways you do not yet understand. Carl Jung called these forces archetypes, deep-rooted psychological patterns that exist within every human being. They are the universal symbols, instincts, and energies that shape your perception of yourself and your place in the world. Think about the stories that have been told throughout history. The hero's journey, the wise mentor, the shadowy villain, the innocent child. These characters appear in myths, religions, literature, and even in our dreams. They are not just fictional, they represent psychological forces that exist within all of us. And whether we realize it or not, these archetypes are constantly at play in our lives. Take, for example, the hero archetype. This is the part of you that longs for purpose, that feels called to something greater. It is the part of you that seeks to overcome obstacles, grow stronger, and achieve a higher version of yourself. But the hero does not exist in isolation. It is always accompanied by the shadow, the part of you that holds your fears, weaknesses, and hidden desires. In myths, the hero must confront the shadow, often symbolized as a monster, an enemy, or a great challenge, before they can truly evolve. Now let's bring this into real life. Have you ever had a moment when you knew you needed to change, but something inside you resisted? A time when you had the opportunity to step into a greater version of yourself, but fear, doubt, or self-sabotage held you back? This is the battle between the hero and the shadow playing out within you. The mistake most people make is trying to suppress the shadow instead of understanding it. Jung believed that true transformation happens when we integrate the shadow, not by rejecting it, but by learning from it. Let's say you struggle with self-doubt. Instead of ignoring it or pretending it doesn't exist, Jung would encourage you to ask, where does this self-doubt come from? Is it truly yours, or was it planted in you by past experiences, societal expectations, or the voices of others? What lessons does it hold? Could it be that within your doubt there is actually a hidden strength, such as humility, introspection, or the ability to see things from multiple perspectives? When we begin to see our struggles not as weaknesses but as messages from the unconscious, everything changes. But archetypes go beyond just the hero and the shadow. There are many other forces within us, each with its own role in shaping our identity. One of the most powerful is the Anima and Animus. Jung believed that within every man there exists a hidden feminine side, the Anima. And within every woman there exists a hidden masculine side, the Animus. These are not about gender in the physical sense, but about the balance of energies within us. The Anima represents intuition, emotion, creativity, and deep connection with the unconscious. The Animus represents logic, structure, discipline, and assertiveness. When these two forces are in balance, a person feels whole. But when they are out of balance, inner conflict arises. For example, a man who rejects his anima may struggle with expressing emotions, fearing vulnerability as a weakness. A woman who rejects her animus may struggle with asserting herself, feeling hesitant to take control of her own life. But when these energies are embraced rather than suppressed, they become a source of immense strength. And this leads us to one of the most important truths Jung discovered. To find yourself, you must embrace all parts of yourself, the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, the known and the unknown. Individuation is not about becoming something different. It is about becoming whole. But there is one final piece to this puzzle. One last revelation that ties everything together. And it is perhaps the most powerful of all, because the greatest obstacle to finding yourself is not just fear or self-doubt or external conditioning. It is something far deeper, something hidden in the very fabric of how we perceive reality itself. Throughout this journey, we have explored the hidden forces shaping your identity, the masks you wear, the shadow you suppress, and the archetypes influencing your thoughts and behaviors. But now we must confront the deepest illusion of all, the illusion of self. Most people go through life assuming that their identity is fixed, that they are a single, unchanging self, moving through time, shaped by memories and experiences. But Jung, along with many great philosophers and mystics, understood something radical. The self is not a static entity. It is fluid, ever-changing, and far greater than we have been led to believe. What if the version of you that you identify with right now is only a fragment of something much larger? What if the person you think you are is just one expression of a limitless consciousness, one that has been evolving for centuries across lifetimes through inherited wisdom and experience? Jung explored this idea through the concept of the self, not the small, ego-driven self that clings to labels and fears, but the true self, the totality of who you are beyond the illusions of identity. And this realization is both liberating and terrifying, because it means that everything you have believed yourself to be, the fears, the limitations, the stories you tell yourself, is not the full truth. It is merely a construct, a temporary framework built by the mind. And here is the most powerful truth of all. You are not just a single, isolated being moving through life. You are a vast, interconnected field of consciousness, carrying within you the wisdom of generations, the depth of the unconscious, and the potential for transformation beyond imagination. But if this is true, then why do we feel so limited? Why do we experience suffering, doubt, and fear? The answer lies in the ego. The ego is not the enemy. It is simply the part of the mind that creates a sense of separation. It is the voice in your head that says, "This is who I am, and this is who I am not." It builds walls, defines borders, keeps you tethered to familiar patterns. And while the ego serves a purpose, it is also the greatest obstacle to self-discovery, because in truth you are not limited to a single identity. You are a being in constant evolution. And the moment you stop clinging to the idea of who you think you are, you unlock infinite possibilities. But how do you do this? How do you step beyond the illusion of self and into the fullness of your existence? Jung offered a path, one that requires courage, deep introspection, and a willingness to surrender everything you thought you knew about yourself. First, embrace the unknown. Most people fear the unknown because it represents uncertainty, but the unknown is where growth happens. It is where transformation occurs. When you stop resisting the mysteries within you and instead lean into them with curiosity, you begin to see the world and yourself with new eyes. Second, release attachment to labels. You are not just your name. You are not just your job, your past, or your personality. You are something far beyond definition. When you let go of rigid identities, you create space for something greater to emerge. Third, listen to the unconscious. Your dreams, your instincts, your deep intuitions, they are not random. They are messages from the self, guiding you toward wholeness. The more you tune in, the more you will begin to recognize patterns, synchronicities, and signs that lead you toward your true path. And finally, surrender to the process. Finding yourself is not a destination. It is not something you achieve and then forget about. It is an ongoing journey, an unfolding of deeper and deeper layers of truth. And here is the ultimate revelation. You were never truly lost. You have always been here. The self you have been seeking has been within you all along, waiting to be remembered. So now, the choice is yours. Will you continue living as a fragment of who you truly are, bound by old fears and illusions, or will you step forward into the unknown, embracing the vast, limitless being you were meant to become? Because life does not truly begin until you find yourself. You have walked the path of self-inquiry, peeling back the layers of conditioning, illusion, and fear. You have seen the masks you wear, the shadows you suppress, and the unconscious forces that shape your choices. But the question remains, what comes next? Awareness is only the first step. True transformation requires action. Most people, even after realizing they are not truly living as themselves, fall back into old patterns. They recognize the prison, but they choose to stay within its walls because stepping outside is terrifying. Why? Because freedom comes with responsibility. To truly find yourself, you must be willing to let go of everything that is not you. This means detaching from beliefs that no longer serve you. It means questioning the assumptions that have shaped your reality. It means being willing to stand alone without the safety of societal approval and say, I will live my truth no matter what. But where do you begin? The first step is confronting your fears. Fear is what keeps us bound to an inauthentic life. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing what is familiar. But here is the secret. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is a doorway. It is the threshold between who you are and who you are meant to become. Every time you feel fear, ask yourself, what is this fear trying to teach me? What part of myself am I afraid to embrace? Because behind every fear lies a hidden power. The second step is reclaiming your desires. Many of us have been taught to suppress our deepest desires. We are told to be realistic, to follow the path that is expected of us, to avoid risk. But Jung believed that our desires, when truly understood, are clues to our authentic path, not desires rooted in societal expectations, not desires born from ego or insecurity, but the deep, soul-driven desires that come from within. What excites you? What fills you with a sense of purpose? What do you long for but have always been too afraid to pursue? When you stop chasing what the world tells you to want and start listening to what your soul wants, you begin to align with your true self. The third step is integrating all parts of yourself. You cannot be whole if you reject parts of yourself, your flaws, your wounds, your mistakes. These are not things to hide. They are pieces of your story. The journey to finding yourself is not about perfection. It is about acceptance. It is about looking at yourself, your light and your darkness, and saying, this is me and I embrace all of it. When you stop resisting who you are, you unlock your true power. And finally, the last step, living your truth. Finding yourself is meaningless unless you have the courage to live as that self, unapologetically. This means setting boundaries. It means walking away from situations that no longer align with you. It means standing in your power even when others do not understand you. Most importantly, it means living from authenticity rather than fear, because at the end of your life, what will matter is not how well you fit in. What will matter is whether you truly lived. So now the question is, will you choose to live as who you were told to be? Or will you choose to break free, fully, fearlessly, and completely? Because your true self has been waiting for you all along. and now you are ready to step into it.